All right, well, we should be live. Hopefully everything's working. Hopefully the audio is fine-tuned well enough that you can hear me. And what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be working on this iPad mini here. It's specifically a model, what is that, A1489. So I don't know what generation this is, to be honest with you. So this belongs to a family member, and I've had it for quite a while now, probably somewhere around the end of the year. The original plan was to replace the Glass Digitizer and help that person kind of learn how to do it and kind of be a part of it. But here we are with the whole COVID thing, you know where we are. And I've realized I had this and this would be a great live stream. We can go ahead and do one of these on the stream. So what we'll do, we'll talk for a little bit, kind of give a few folks a chance to join up if they want to hang out and watch us do it. Otherwise, we'll go right ahead, because this will end up, after the live stream, being a video on our channel. So of course the big difference is there's zero editing, so what you see is what you get. However long it takes is how long it takes. Now, a couple things we'll talk about as we go through here is just in general some mobile repair stuff and things that you got to look for. And in general, what you always hear is that repairing mobile devices nowadays is getting more and more difficult. They're making it more and more hard to repair, and in fact Apple is kind of really difficult in that sense, that they really just don't want end users repairing their devices. So a good example is the screen. This is not the LCD panel, fortunately, for an iPad. The LCD is actually inside there. You'll see that as we pull it apart. But you can buy the Glass Digitizer for only about 18 to 20 US dollars. And of course, there's lots of different ones out there. The big thing is, are they as strong as the original ones? Probably not. They're definitely aftermarket. There's a lot of sources to pick from. You have to kind of do a lot of research and find one that is actually fairly decent quality and works. But they're out there and you can find them. But that's kind of the big issue. You can't just go to Apple and buy a digitizer screen from Apple. So that's always a bit of a bummer. So you're kind of left with what you find in the aftermarket. And in terms of screens for phones, same deal. So usually on the iPhone, you end up replacing the actual screen. So here I've got I think this is a 7. So the panel would come out, the LCD screen and the glass and the digitizer and the touch screen would all be a single unit. On the iPad, it's a little different. As we said earlier, the LCD panel is actually inside the unit and will be removed as we do this work. But I've noticed on some of the aftermarket LCD panels, the quality is just not there. You have uneven backlighting, even though the resolution might be the same. I've seen them where the refresh rate of the screen's very poor, so you can kind of see some motion when you move them. So you got to be very careful when you pick the screens that actually have an LCD panel, even more so than just something like a Glass Digitizer. But what we're here to do today is go ahead and start and work on these. So we're going to move this out of the way for the time being, and we are going to show you a few tools that we're going to use today, and then we're going to jump right into the stuff. So let me pick the right thing here. We'll move that out of the way and not drop it, hopefully, because that'll end the video pretty quick if we drop it. So let's go to our camera here. This is our picture-in-picture view, and obviously you'll see here I've got my arm in the way. I've got a fair amount of tools for mobile devices, and I think actually we'll go back to this screen for some of it. We have some strange devices like this thing right here, which I don't even know what that is, but this thing, which you can use for splitting phone screens. So it has suction cups on either side, and you can actually use it to pull up. In fact, look at that. This is going to be an easy job. That should not have pulled up that easy. This is going to make it a lot easier. So full disclosure, this screen has been replaced before. So this is no longer the original Apple screen. You know what, I'm going to break the glass and it's going to go everywhere. This is not the original Apple Glass Digitizer. This has been replaced once in the past, and unfortunately it was dropped again and broke, and most likely it was due to the fact, like I said earlier, you can't really buy actual aftermarket Apple pieces. You have to buy third-party stuff, and I'm sure the glass is not Gorilla Glass, and it's probably not as strong, so it's not really the fault of the owner. But this device here, like I said, it grabs with suction cups either side of the device and allows you to split the screen up on them. Makes it a very handy device. I do have a electronics toolkit that we'll probably use today. And that comes with a bunch of different things on it. I think we can switch back to our other camera and show you that here. So as you can see, there's all kinds of different tools. And the thing with working on mobile devices, you know, we do a lot of car work on the channel, but I've been fixing computers, building computers, stuff like that for many, many years, and doing electronic work for years as well. And the tools are very similar. You know, we've got our screwdrivers with the different bits. The thing with the mobile devices that made it interesting is you've got a real array of strange tools like spatulas, and they call them spudgers actually. And I mean, this looks like a nail kit. I'm going to file my nails or something, but this is to dig into these devices and get them opened up because they're so difficult to open. No longer, and if you look at this device, older iPhones had 2 screws by your connector here, and you could actually go ahead and open. Once you got those screws out, it would open up very easily. Nowadays, on the iPads and iPhone 7 and above, these are all glued in. They have, this is why they're water resistant. They have seals, and you got to do a lot of work to get the seals off. So there's all these tools for doing that come in this kit. Now you don't need a kit like this. So I'm going to fold this up. You don't really need that. The thing is, when you buy a lot of these, and this is just like everything with tools, the more you do, the more you fix, the more tools you get. Every time I buy a screen and do this for somebody, I get a pack of tools. So here I've got multiple of these little screwdrivers. I've got tons of spudgers. I've got a whole bunch of, which usually you need for the iPads, these guitar pick looking things. I've actually never tried to play guitar with them. But you get a ton of these things. So we've amassed a lot of these tools as we go. But generally speaking, if you're interested in doing something like this, usually when you buy the screen, it comes with the tools that you need to do it. Now the quality of those can vary. So again, when you're picking which one you want, go ahead and take a look at what you're getting. So, and I'm going to try to balance a few things here. So let's go back to OBS. I need like double monitors or producer. I need producers that aren't dogs that just run around and chew bones and cause trouble. So if I go back to here so you can see me. Hey, Gwen, how you doing? You're off camera, but that's okay. So kind of what we're doing for our setup today, if I remember what I was going to say, is Sharky's right off camera with a pillow from the couch running around with it. So awesome. But what we are doing today is, well, obviously we're doing the iPad, but I completely lost my train of thought. So that's okay. We are going to go ahead and dive into this and start working on it. So I'm going to get some of the tools that we need. I know we're going to need several of these picks here, although I can see already that our glass is coming loose because it's aftermarket, so we're going to have a lot easier time. So we're going to set some of these aside. Put this over here. Oh, I think what I was trying to say was balancing the screens. Even though I've done this before, I'm actually going to use an online guide as a reference as I go through, because and in fact I'm going to use the Ifixit website. So Ifixit, by the way, great resource. And it's the kind of thing, if you're doing work like this and you know a new iPad's hundreds of bucks or getting them repaired's $100 and you can buy the thing for $18 and do it yourself, you know, you're saving a good 80 bucks. You know, you can you know, maybe buy some tools from Ifixit or something like that and support them, because when you go to their site, they have detailed step-by-step pictures, everything you need to do this, and it's really handy. So I like to have it on my screen off to the side just so I can kind of stay going. The Ifixit guide for the iPad screen replacement is 66 steps. Now, a third of those steps, if not more, maybe half of them, are all about getting the glass separated and getting these things put in and dealing with the broken glass. So it's not that bad, so don't think it's going to take us that long. So we're probably looking about an hour. So I'm going to have that up on the screen here, and I'm going to bounce between OBS, where I'm going to change scenes, and then of course we have our live stream panel, where if anyone's posting comments, they will appear. So if I am slow to reply on comments, it's because I've got my hands full for the time being. So let's jump into this and get it done. So I am going to use tools such as this opener. I'm going to have that set aside. Probably need some tweezers at some point. So I'm just going to kind of set this off to the side here so it's in reach if I need anything. But one of the things that's actually kind of unique with these is that we are going to be using a couple of interesting tools. First off, tape. We're going to use packing tape. And the main thing we're going to do with that is actually coat the screen with packing tape, because as this glass comes off, it's going to want to come into pieces, and depending on how shattered it is, you're going to have a lot of glass shards to deal with. So the tape actually helps hold the screen together as you remove it. The next thing we're going to use, and hope that we don't have too many things plugged in and blow a circuit, is a heat gun. Now this heat gun can put out 1500 watts, and it's a double temperature. This is not a hair dryer, right? This will catch your hair on fire if you hold it close enough. This thing will get nice and hot. So we have to be very careful with this. Now the reason we're using this is that, well, we might not have to use it because, as we saw, this is going to pop off pretty easy. On a factory sealed iPad, the adhesive around the screen is pretty tough. So what you have to do is you actually have to warm that adhesive up and kind of work it loose. So Ifixit sells a neat little thing, if you don't want to use a tool like that you microwave, and it heats up. It's like a heating pad, and you set it on the edges, and it'll actually warm the edges up one at a time. A heat gun, very inexpensive tool from like Harbor Freight. It's like a $7 tool. And the only thing you have to be careful is use the low heat setting. You don't want to overheat this and melt solder or cause damage, or you could melt literally or damage the actual LCD panel. So you got to, you'll see us, we'll use it very gingerly. Now if you have a hairdryer works just fine. All a hairdryer does is probably blow air a little bit more, but it still has a similar heating element to it. So that's really it for the special tools. Other than that, most everything else you're going to need, you're going to get with the kit with the glass if you pick it out. Like I said, these guitar pick things. There's some very small screwdrivers we're going to use. So I am going to pull my electronics toolkit out, even though I think with this one, I think this came with it. This screwdriver came with it, which looks like a very small Phillips. So, honestly, with the screen, it came with more tools. But I'm going to go ahead and get my little toolkit ready in case we need it. And then I'm going to get my toolbox and put it down here. All right, so realizing I don't have as much room on this table as I had thought, so I'm going to move a few things out of the way, try to get us a little more room, and let's go ahead and get moving. All right, so first thing we want to do, and first thing we'll talk about, is static discharge. So let's set this aside because we don't need it for right now. But generally speaking, when you're working on electronics, you have to be careful about static electricity. So if you're living somewhere where it's carpeted and you're scuffing your feet on the carpet, if you've got dry climate and long hair, and if you're touching stuff and feeling shocks, even if you don't feel them, and a static shock can sometimes be enough to overload sensitive electronics, especially small chips and stuff like that. Now, I will tell you that my little electronics kit comes with this little thing here, which is still sealed in the bag. This is a ground strap that you can put around your wrist, and you can clip it to a ground source, and it'll help discharge electric shocks or static shocks from you as you're working on electronics. And when I started working in IT doing computer repair stuff at a small business, I remember I used to wear this all the time. Whenever I built computers at home, I'd wear it, probably for the first couple months, and then I never ever wore it again. So, and you know what? You know how many electronic things I've killed? 0. Okay, so now your mileage may vary. If you want to wear the static discharge thing, it is a protective device like anything else. It is going to help eliminate it, but you really do have to actually ground it properly for it to actually work. So what I typically do is, if I walk up to something, I will ground myself before I touch anything. So I will eliminate the static discharge in myself by touching a metal object, something that's grounded, and then that way I know I'm fine. And like I said, I've never had an issue. The other thing is the substrate you're using. So I have this really nice silicon pad that I cannot find, that I usually do electric work on. But instead what I'm doing, just to kind of help out with white balance on the camera from the overhead lights, is some foam from an anti-static bag from a motherboard, and some foam underneath it. And it's probably not the best anti-static stuff, but it's good. It'll be fine. And it helps with the white balance. So that's what we're going to use. So, but definitely be careful with that. And the other thing is, and I'm going to transition back, and you're probably like, would you please just get working? But there's another interesting anecdote about repairing these devices, is that a lot of these things aren't like computers where you have removable memory that you can pull out and, oh, I killed the motherboard, so I'm going to pull the hard drive out and copy the data off it. A lot of times when people ask for help with their devices and I help them, I'm kind of keen to tell them, hey, listen, right? I have never not repaired a device, but I also don't do it for a living. I don't do it all the time. I haven't touched one of these things in 6 months, if not more. And so that being said, there's a chance that I might work on it and the device will never turn on again. So if it is usable to the point that you can copy data off of it, I always encourage people to do that, and it's a smart thing to do if it's yours, because you never know if something goes wrong, if it gets damaged even worse. You don't want to lose the data that's on there. So hopefully you got the iCloud, you got your backups, all that good stuff. But I always throw that out there, and for me it's a superstition thing. If I don't say that, and if I go up and I'm like, I can fix your thing, don't worry about it, that's the one that's going to break. So I have to make people swear that they're okay with me working on it. So if I've ever done that to you, that's why. So, all right, let's go ahead and do this. So what we're going to do, the very first thing is, well, got to bring my guide up here. Now the first bunch of steps are all about putting the heating pad on, and that's where we're going to start. So we're going to take our picks here that we have, and the whole idea is that we want to go ahead and heat the edge up here. There's an adhesive all around the edge, and without looking at the guide, just going from memory, there's a couple things you want to look out for. Number one, and you can see it on the replacement, you have your ribbon cable for the digitizer that's going to clip up somewhere in here. You also have your home button, which you have to deal with, and then you have your camera opening here, so you're going to have the camera. So as you're coming along with these things and you're basically pulling this up and using these to pry it up and remove the adhesive, you don't want to be coming in here and cutting that or messing something up there or cutting ribbon cables and stuff like that. So you got to take some care. When you come around the home screen, there are some things that you're going to be reusing that you don't want to damage. I think here there's some antennas and connectors. You have your home screen, and I think there's something here as well, because you've got speakers as well. So there's some intricate parts in here you have to be very, very careful with. So first thing we're going to do, though, before we do anything, and as I continue to get fingerprints all over it, I'm going to go ahead and get my tape. If I know how to use tape. All right, who knows how to use tape? Why does this tape not roll? Oh, I see. I think I see. All right, that's a good enough piece. We're going to put the tape on our screen like that. And I'm going to attempt to get another piece off of it. This is smashed and hung up somewhere. There we go. I'm going to get a piece right here. Of course, I made it too long. Do I have a razor blade or utility knife? This should be a utility knife. Excellent. We'll put a piece right here, especially where we have those pieces. And we'll put one more piece. Oops. This is the hardest part, I swear. Put another piece right here. All right, so what the tape is going to do for you, it's going to help keep this as one piece. So when you take it off, as it breaks, or if it's shattered even worse than this one is, it helps keep those pieces on, and you're going to be picking less of it out of the machine and less of it off of the table here. So that's going to help pretty good. So go ahead and get that pushed down. Now another thing you have to look out for on a lot of Apple devices nowadays, as we put our little utility knife away, is the home button. Now on this device, this is a standard home button, nothing special. But in an iPhone 7 and above, and I'm sure in some of the newer iPads, this is a Touch ID sensor. Now the Touch ID sensor is a hardware device that is coded to the motherboard of the unit. So a lot of times when you buy a new screen or panel, like on this one, when you have a regular just button, there's your button. But when you have a device with an actual Touch ID sensor, don't believe the devices or the screens online that say it comes with a sensor. You have to use the original Touch ID that came with the phone. So if that's damaged, or if you damage it when you're taking it off, you're going to lose your Touch ID functionality. So that might not be an issue for you. I don't really use Apple devices so much, so I don't recall if you have to use Touch ID. I'm assuming you don't. I'm using it on the work one I have, but that's something to keep in mind, that if you damage that, that's going to have to go to Apple to be repaired. So just the way it is. All right, so what we're going to do, and probably going to melt our foam here before anything, so that'll be a good tell for us. So we're going to use our, let me go back to OBS, make sure we're on camera here, because I'm going to try to do this so you can see. Oh, I never transitioned my screen. See, this is why I need a producer. All right, so now you can see the tape a little better here, and you can see what we've been talking about and putting on this camera. So this is why this is going to be a little bit challenging, just to sort of juggle everything here. But we're going to take our heat gun, and at a low heat, we're going to come along this edge. We're going to start here. And we're going to move it back and forth. We don't want to stay in any one place at any given time. We don't want to overheat. And we'll check it. Not really warm yet. Okay, now we got some warmth to it. So we'll put our heat gun aside. And what we'll use, and we could use our device that we showed you earlier, or a lot of times you get these little guys, which that one's busted. Usually they have a nice little ring that goes through them. We're going to put that on this, and it'll allow us to pull the screen up enough, as long as our adhesive is pulled enough, to slide one of these in. Like that. Now, like I said, since we've replaced the screen in the past, no doubt the adhesive is not as strong as a factory sealed unit. So I'm already noticing that this is easier than the last time I did it. So as you can see, this is going to go right through into the glass there, and you're going to separate that adhesive. Now I'm hoping that on this aftermarket unit, the adhesive is going to stay mostly on the glass that we're taking off. Otherwise, there's a little bit more cleanup that has to be done. Now, generally speaking, you're not usually able to come as easily as I am and just slide this in here and break that adhesive loose. Again, if you've never done this on your iPad, it's going to be a little tougher than it's just aiming to be here, which is great for a live stream. It makes it look like this is super easy and I know what I'm doing. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but you know. So one of the reasons you get a lot of these is as you go, normally it doesn't bend up this easy to be this loose. You need to end up using a lot of these. You're going to have these basically stuck all throughout the screen. All right, so that one is pretty well good. Now remember, around here I want to be careful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go up around this side of the screen. So let's take our heat gun. We're going to do the top. All right, that's nice and warm. Move that out of the way. And here's one that I bent up pretty good trying to get something. So I'm going to come around with this one. So as you can see here, we've got this crack in the screen that's allowed it to pull around there. So I'm going to hope I can come in under that glass and get under the other side. What I can do is use my opener tool, which is a little bit stronger. Come up underneath. Now something like this tool that's got a metal edge, this is going to almost be like a knife, so you really got to be careful with something like that if you're not cut into one of these before because you don't want to cut literally. Like right around here, you're going to have the housing and the actual camera, so we got to be very careful not going too far. Come on here. Let's leave one of these in. This is easy. Let's go ahead and warm up our other side. Trying to watch the camera so you can see as well. Hopefully our picture-in-picture works good. Look, you can still see me. All right. So all the people that just want to see an iPad, like what it looks like inside, they know better than to show up early because I'm going to talk for a long time. And then the actual work is going to have to happen of getting this off. So you tune in about a half hour in, and then you just get to see the guts of an iPad. All right, so like I said, I'm still using the Ifixit guide just to scroll through, make sure I'm not forgetting anything from when I did this before. And just to let you know, like I said, 66 steps in the Ifixit guide. And we are already at, yeah, we're at like step 24 already. So yeah, so we're pretty much coming in and doing the bottom now. Now, again, if you're just tuning in, a lot of this is turning out to be a lot easier than it was the first time I did it because we're using an aftermarket digitizer on this already. So it's very clear, and it's actually kind of interesting if you use an aftermarket piece. I got my drink here. Just how much the adhesive is different. I mean, since we can't actually buy an official part from Apple, you know, these third-party pieces, you do start to wonder a little bit what their quality is. So I got one of these tools. I wonder how this works. Ooh, look at that. That's kind of a neat tool. This is good because it's going to help me be a little more careful around our edge here where we have some connectors. Like our speakers and whatnot. So, all right. All right, now we're looking pretty good. Now we're getting into a bit of an interesting part because, well, number one, I got to get our little suction cup off. I'm going to put our suction cup here. I apologize for coughing, because we're about ready to open up this iPad, and when we do that, we're now at a stage where there is a chance for dust to make it into our LCD screen. Now, there are things you can do to mitigate that and to prevent it from being a problem, but it's going to happen. So anything you can do to kind of minimize that, get more of a dust-free environment, you know, do that. So, all right, so let's move this here. So what we're going to do with our iPad is kind of open it like a book. This is where the home button is. We're going to flip this back and lay it over here. And our adhesive resealed a little bit, but not too bad. Now, if your adhesive reseals, just take your heat gun and warm it back up. All right, so here we go. All right, so you can definitely see, wow, there's actually a scratch on our LCD panel. I don't know if you can see that. But right along here, there's a little scratch or some dirt in it. But you know what? It didn't really show up on the screen, and it didn't look too bad. But I can definitely see, like, there's just dirt in here. So it's pretty apparent to me that this didn't seal as well. This aftermarket screen did not seal anywhere near as good as the original. So it's a bit of a bummer. All right, so what do we got next? So on our front panel, the front-facing camera housing may stick to the front panel. Peel up the housing and place it back over the camera to protect it. That's probably this thing right here. So and make sure you can see that. That's probably, we got all our little tools here. I'm going to use, I'll try to use this plastic spudger, this one right here. Let's see if that is on our replacement. So it's been a little while. Yep, there it is. All right, so we should be good there. All right. Huh. So this iPad is on. So I wasn't sure. There was actually something interesting with this. I remember that it had some sort of an extra problem than just the crack in the screen, and I assumed it was the touch screen not working. And that sort of happens when these crack. It kills the digitizer, so you'll lose a portion of that, or sometimes all of the touch screen. And that happened on this device. But I couldn't remember if the actual LCD worked or not. And I plugged it in, charged it for like 5 minutes, enough to actually turn it on. And the thing is, with no digitizer, you cannot turn it off. So this is actually a running iPad right now. But we're going to take care of that by disconnecting the battery when we get to it. So it looks like we're going to be removing our LCD panel next, and we're going to use the screwdriver that we came with here. And we've got some foam tape that covers the screws. Where are they at? Are they here? And that's probably for our speakers. Looks like we got one here. We've got one of our magnets right here. So these little magnets, you're going to want to be very careful and save. And one thing I like to use, by the way, to save little parts is a small pillbox. So we're going to put our magnet. So this is for the smart case. So there's a little neodymium type magnet that will allow you to put the smart case on and keep it closed. And there should be one there, and then there should be one up in here. There's the top one. So we're going to put the top one in Wednesday and the bottom one in Thursday. All right, so what we need to do is find the screws to our LCD assembly, and it looks like there should be these 4 around the edge. We're going to open up good old Sunday here. And put our tiny little screws. I kind of feel like not reading the instructions anymore because I feel like I pretty much know how to do this. But if this is supposed to be a guide, it should probably be somewhat correct. And I got to keep switching back, make sure I'm not blocking the view too much. Okay, let's go ahead and close that up, and then we'll come back to this really quick. So the next thing is what you've already seen us do it, is you'd actually need to use tweezers for this. So we'll pull out our tweezers and show you, is removal of this tape, which we've kind of already done. Just sort of peel that back off of your LCD panel, like so. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and turn this around. That's one reason we have our base plate here. We're going to use our spudger. We should be able to come in here and lift up on our LCD panel, but very, very carefully. Looks like we're kind of sticking here. I got to figure out why. Must be a little bit of tape. So let's go. This is one thing that I like about having a couple of these tools. It's always nice to come in and just come along the edge. So one of the reasons we're being a little bit extra careful here, aside from the obvious, is I don't want to crack the actual LCD. If we do that, everything we're doing here is for nothing. So I want to be able to kind of come in here and just wedge this in on the edge. You can see that I'm starting to bend that a little bit. So what we need to do is move our whole panel over. There we go. Let's use this. There we go. It's kind of getting hung up there a little bit. So since we actually do have a powered on iPad, I probably shouldn't use the metal tools. I don't want to short circuit anything. So we're going to use our plastic spudgers, as they are called, and come in here and just separate any of the adhesive, make sure that we're not binding this and breaking it. And this is where you just don't want to rush. Take your time. Take your time. We'll lift that up. And there should be a connector right here on the back of the LCD. Oh, let me check, because it might be on yeah, that was like 10 steps right there I just did. All right, the LCD is up a couple inches, and make sure it's free of the adhesive. 2 wide strips of tape connect. Pull it away from the speakers while rotating. Sweater outward to separate the tape. Did that. Yeah, we're like 48 now. All right. Flip the LCD over and rest it on the front panel glass. All right, so we're going to just take this and lift it straight over. Just like that. And that's actually a good move, because that's going to protect us from getting dirt in there while that's up. So now what we're going to be doing is removing this lower piece that basically covers where the battery is. And the reason that you have to do this, and again, this gets into the whole idea of repairability. This would be a very simple job if all you had to do was remove the glass, disconnect the ribbon cable, and reattach the new one. But the ribbon cables for the Glass Digitizer go underneath this entire panel. So you got to remove this whole panel, which you got to remove the entire LCD screen to get to. So a bit of a pain. All right. Back to our screen. So we're going to open up good old Monday there, and we're going to take the screws out. That screw wasn't even in. Who did this before? Oh, I did. I probably stripped it. So these screws, and I don't have a good macro camera, unfortunately, that can show you this, but I don't know if you can see. If I get this over somewhere, I'm going to try to. What I'll do is I'll hold this up. See if we can get the camera to zoom in on it and actually focus. And it doesn't want to. There it goes. There we go. So that's the little screw that we're dealing with, which fortunately this is a magnetized screwdriver. So very, very tiny screw. Very easy to lose, which is why I like to use these pill cases. So we've got, looks like 3 on either side. I always like to say that, like, It's really weird when your iPad barks at you when you're working on it. This thing's been off for so many months. I really hope it's not sending stuff out to people that this person knows. Like, you never know, right? Oh, there we go. There's one. So this last one over here is giving us a bit of trouble to the point that I'm going to have to stick my head over, get closer view. But it doesn't help that I don't have the best eyes in the world. But a lot of the tricks of working on cars kind of apply here too. There we go. Like sometimes when these don't want to come out, they need a little tiny bit of pressure against the threads to actually thread out. And just the same when you're putting these in, you don't want to crank down one side and then crank down this side. You're going to twist this large panel. So doing things in a crisscross fashion inside out, just like you think you're putting on a cylinder head. It's just the same, just a ton smaller. And oh yes, you can strip out these screws and cross thread them, and they're so small that when you do it, you got no clue that you're doing it. Is that even a screw in there? Where'd it go? There's not even a screw in there. Must have took that one out. All right. Here's the last one. So it is very, very possible and easy to strip one of these screws. The fact that we've got a little bit of a magnet here is going to help. But again, since our iPad is running, I'm going to use our plastic spudger here and see if we got all of these out. Oh, we got one left. So we got to go back to Monday. We got to open Monday up again. Nobody wants that. There we go. Where'd you go? Come on out. There it is. Okay, done with Monday. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pick this up. It's funny, I was looking over the steps in the Ifixit guide, and it made references to using one of the picks or a guitar pick to shift the LCD over. As you might have recalled, ours was binding slightly, and that was actually the reason. We figured it out and moved it over, but you follow the guide and it tells you how. So we're having the same issue here. This is just getting a little bit hung up, so we're going to move it over to one side. And we'll go ahead and go over there. Come on, you. Come on out now. I don't want to bend you. Come on, we're on live stream. Don't do this. You don't want to do this. Come on. You're going to do that, aren't you? It says there's screws everywhere around here, but not in this one. It actually has blank spots, so this must be for they are absolutely not there. All right, so it says to go from the bottom up, so that's what we'll do. Pop it up. There we go. All right, so we're going to set this aside. And here is an iPad. So all you have is, it's mainly battery. So you've got your lithium-ion battery pack here, both of these cells. You have your camera. And then you have antennas and buttons on the side. You have, looks like one of your buttons here. Looks like some sort of a sensor or connector there for the button. And then really your logic board for an iPad mini is literally just this piece right here. It's that much. That's iPad. That's it. So it doesn't take much to have one of these devices. So now what we're going to do from this point is we don't have to take the batteries out or anything like that, which is good. And I personally do not like dealing with these lithium-ion batteries. I've replaced them, and then I usually like to go and get them in the recycling place when I'm done. You have to be very careful you don't puncture these. So when you're messing around in here, don't be fiddling this stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove this panel right here. So we're going to use Tuesday for that. And again, I'm going off of the instructions, as in not using them. So I'm guessing that's what the instructions say, but I pretty much know. I'm content. So 3 screws. And we'll check to see if they're different sizes, because a lot of times they are. Oh, they are. So a tiny one. We'll put the tiny one. Jeez, stop barking at me. Put the tiny one aside for the time being. And what we're going to do is just like you would do in a car. So again, a lot of the same things work here. We're going to take and put the screws back where they go. I think if you watched our WJ water pump video, you probably remember that the WJ water pump has different size screws across the water pump. So what we do is we take the water pump off, the old one, and then we put the screws back in where they go. So we're going to put this just like it came out on the table. And we'll put these where they go. And then we'll lose them when we elbow that away. So we're going to be very careful about not doing that and just move that off to the side. And now we know in Tuesday, the larger screw goes in there. So now that we have this off, we're going to go ahead and turn off our iPad by removing the battery. And let me just check our stream, make sure we're still streaming. Tom's on, it's an Apple product, yo. Yes, it is. I'm with you there. So, which is why I'm doing it a second time too, because you can't buy an actual Apple component for it. So you get these cheap aftermarket pieces, and you drop it from 2 inches and it breaks again. All right, so we're going to use our spudger here. We're going to disconnect this connector here. It's probably a little hard to see on the screen, but essentially these are little push pin connectors. So you can take your plastic spudger and pry up on them, just like that. So that disconnected our batteries. So now our iPad that we could not turn off because the digitizer was broken is now off. And now we should be able to remove these pieces as well. So this should be our LCD panel. Well, sorry if I'm getting my head in the way. So you kind of come up, pry, and pop. There we go. There's our LCD panel is off now. See, now that's free. And then we can kind of come in here and let's move this out of the way. I'm going to put it on our screen piece there. So I can make sure that you all can see what we're doing. All right, so it looks like we've got a small one here that's going to fold. So if we get that, it's going to fold out of the way. It looks like we've got one possibly here. Does it slide in like that? Let's take a look at our reference really quick, because I just don't remember. All right, what do we got? This is definitely a guide for a different model iPad, but it's close enough. So pop that off, pop that thing off, pop some other stuff, pop some things there, blah, blah, blah. All right, I already did that. This guide is officially not really the right one, but generally probably the digitizer cable board up from the rear case. So that should be this right here. I'm betting it's glued in. Sorry. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to reposition our camera so it's a little easier for you to see what we're doing here. And I'm going to hope I don't push the camera off into the actual unit. So what we're doing is we've pried this one off for our digitizer. This is our battery cable. And we're going to come in here and figure this one out. There we go. So it was glued on the bottom there. And that is our digitizer screen out of the way. So as you can see, the tape that we used helped hold it together, even though it would have probably been in 4 or 5 pieces. And the only thing we're going to have to deal with on this one is where this break was. It's going to have left a dent right here. And the other thing you're going to want to do is just come in here and just make sure you clean up any of the residual glue. We're going to have to come in here. I can try with one of these. See if I can push the aluminum case back out, but I might need to use some small pliers. Which I have. Oops, you didn't see that. No one saw that. And we can push this out. So cosmetically, this piece is not going to be great, but this iPad's been in a war zone, it looks like, so. The reason I need to really bend this out is when the new glass fits in, it's going to need to fit into this radius. And I don't want to have a problem with it not wanting to seat. So this is my opportunity to do that. So I apologize if it's going to mess up your view. I think this is going to do it. And this is where I make the claim, if this never turns on again, you can go to this timestamp and see why. If I was in the shop, I'd probably just, take the old hammer and dolly and whack on that a little bit instead of these little dinky tools. We'll test fit it and we'll see if that works, but that should do the trick. All right. So step 60, step 61. What do we got to take off here? Nothing. Before you install your new front panel, you need to transfer the old smart cover magnets on your old front panel to your new front panel. Yes, well, when we took ours off, they were actually attached to the iPad itself. And alrighty. Well, fortunately, we've come to the end of our guide because, yeah, El Pondo and she'll be fine. That's all you got to do. So, all right. Let's go ahead and move this off to the side. I'm going to take our LCD panel very carefully. This is the original LCD panel, which still got some scratches on it. We're going to set it on off to the side there so it stays clean. Let's take a look at our new Glass Digitizer. All right, so we'll open this thingy up, take a look. Oh look, instructions. Don't need those. Alright, so here's our nice little fragile device here. So what we're going to end up doing obviously is putting this, well, the other way around, like that. So our smart magnets should go along this edge. We kind of put this here. I believe our smart magnets go here and somewhere up around there. But unfortunately, they weren't attached to our old screen, which I'm using to protect our LCD. If I flip it over, there should have been, one was right there, and there should have been one somewhere up around here. Looks like probably around there. So we're going to have to use our reference guide. Very careful with that LCD, by the way. I don't want to break it. Let me just go back to the reference pictures that I have and take a look at where they're showing it. All right, so they're showing the top one right above that adhesive strip. But I don't really see adhesive there. To hold it. I think we threw that one in Wednesday. The top one is in our Wednesday in our pill box. And there is some adhesive on it. Good. So that's just going to go pretty much like that. Though, I probably need to remove all the adhesive tape here. Where says instructions? All right. But that's where that's going to go. So that's good. And that's still got some adhesive on it. So let's see what we need to remove here. Looks like we definitely have some adhesive tape, which we can see right here. I'm not really keen on removing this right now. I kind of feel like putting the smart magnets back on after the fact, because I'm going to need to remove, like, this adhesive right here has a cover on it. I can see it. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, you can see that. So you have this adhesive, but you also have this adhesive that runs along the bottom. And these, if you're actually, for some reason, reusing this, you can buy just these adhesive strips for like a couple bucks. But I can definitely see a little bit of blue covering on it. And of course, this has a tab for the front. This one has a tab for that. So I'm not seeing a tab for that one, so I'm going to have to pick it off. But I don't really want to deal with that just yet because I'm not ready to put that on. So what we're going to do is put our smart magnet back in Wednesday. We just have to make sure we don't forget them. We have our iPad laid out the way we want. I'm going to go around the edge here and just sort of make sure there's not too much funk in here from where it was lifting. There's a little bit of leftover adhesive, so we'll leave it. And I'm really hoping that's not too bad. If I need to, I have a bigger set of pliers. I might just run and get. And I did. Look at these. All right, back in my chair here. Yeah, these will do it. All right, let me pick this off and do this iPad a disservice. That's better. That's better. That's actually moving it. Little sharp edge there. Yeah, we picked it off. I think that's probably close enough. All right. So let's remember our order of steps. We do need to take our new piece here. We're going to lay it out. We're going to prepare to install our pieces here, but one of the things we need to do is there's our connector, and there should be, it's a little hard to see, there should be, you gotta be careful I don't break it, these are so fragile, there should be a little adhesive strip under here that's going to allow us to kind of glue that and attach it there. This is usually the case on these. Honestly, for that one, I'm not really seeing it. So, do when in doubt, always compare to your old one. On this particular one, so it would have come in like this. We did have that piece which was glued on there, and then there was a little cover there. So our new piece kind of covers all that up, and I'm fairly content with that. But let's go ahead and remove it. Now they've got that taped on there pretty good, so I'm not going to remove it. Maybe I should check those instructions. What do you think? Alright, so what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pop it on. So we're going to line up our connector. We're going to push it on, just like that. That's all it takes. You can use your spudger to do it too. And we'll lay that down there. And the big thing is to make sure that's on nice and tight. It's not going to pop off. And we'll check our little, the README thing that it had. Yeah, I know. I'm reading the instructions. All right, what does it say here? Do not remove the yellow/black protective tape on the flex cable IC chip during install. Hey, cool, I didn't. Do not fold the digitizer cable or it will not function. I didn't fold it, I just bent it. All right, make sure to first disconnect the battery. We did that. All the screws were tightened evenly. Make sure the flex tucks slightly under the edge of the LCD. All right, all good. So simple stuff if you've worked on this. The big thing was that protective. And the reason I was curious, let's take a look at this again. I'm really making this take longer than it should. The thing that I found interesting was on this one, which apparently didn't have a protective cover, there's a copper piece that almost made me wonder if for some reason that was touching the case and actually grounding, acting as a ground for some strange reason. But it appears that that must not be the case because they're totally content with just having this one here. So let's go ahead and make sure this connector is on. They are correct. You don't want to fold these, like crease them, fold them, and you don't want to put a lot of stress on that either. All right, so we should be all set to put our battery back in. Just connect it up, and that's where our LCD panel goes. So we can take our LCD panel, and we're not going to remove the glue on our digitizer yet. There's our old digitizer out of the way. Let's take our LCD panel. Very carefully going to lay it on top, just like a book. Set that right there. Get on there, come on now. Don't be difficult. There we go. Nope. I'll lay that down. Spudger it. See. There we go. Felt it clip in there. That's one problem with using the foam here is as I'm pushing down, I'm pushing into the foam, not getting enough pressure to connect it. So now we got it. All right, so before we fold this back, we need to put back our little cover. And we know we've got the two small tiny screws and where they go. This goes just like that. With a screw hole. What I really had hoped to do, and pretty much figured I need a HDMI input for the laptop, is connect up a camera that has a really good macro, and then you could actually see live as we do this. But I could record that and then take the SD card out and do it. But for live streams, I'd have to get an HDMI input, which I don't have. So everything's on a USB webcam. Put that one in. Here's our next one. Just like a car, I'm not really tightening them that tight, just getting them kind of hand done in. Let's go back to our Tuesday bin in our pill case, and here's the long one. We took out, that one's a little longer. This on the side there. One. Now we'll go back and try to tighten them in sequence. You're not cranking them down, you're using hardly any force at all. These are tiny, tiny screws. Good enough. Good enough. It's done. All right, now before this goes, we have our cover. So this cover needs to go back on. And I've abandoned the guide because I'm lazy and think I know everything. I need to get this to bend slightly to get under the flange. There we go. So little tip. This end first, but this side first, and then you kind of go under that flange and then you can push it in there. So now we can take all the screws out of Monday and start putting them back in. Got one in there. The first one's going to be a little tough, especially trying to not block the camera. All right, that's in. That was the one that when we took the cover off was loose. I don't know why. Did one in the corner there. Nice, nice. Let's check on our stream here. So, smart magnets. Question about smart magnets. So, the smart magnets, if you have an iPad, they have the smart case, they call it, and the case has magnets in it. And when apparently this thing detects when that magnetic field is there, and it'll close and open the screen automatically or dim, like, put it in sleep mode, whatever. So you open the case with the magnets, there's like a little bit of a pull on the magnets, and as you open it, more than likely it has a light sensor. It knows to do it. So I don't think the magnets are smart so much as the software is designed to react to the light from the cover being pulled back. It's Apple. Everything has to be smart. Smart magnets. Genius is working on it. Not tonight. Here we go. That one's in. Here. Oops, I felt that one wanting to cross thread a little bit. I got 2 left. And certainly the model that the guide was for had a lot more, so yeah, it's probably the bigger one. It might not have been a mini. Where am I missing one? Right here. Go, and 1 left. And that one goes. I don't know. Oh, here. in the back. Sorry, I keep blocking it with my big head. Hey, Charlotte, how are you? All right, so we have our cover back on. That covers our battery and our logic board. We have our connectors in. We should be ready to flip our LCD down. So just like a book, very, very carefully. And again, this side first. Let me get it to rest in there. And when in doubt, don't use your fingers on there. Use this. Push everything in. There's the tape here might not have folded back enough. Let's take a look at that. I should have remembered to do that. So if you recall, there's some tape here that needs to be reattached to the screen. So as we lay it this way, we're going to push the tape up as best we can. Sort of. Like that. And we're going to drop it in. We got these screws to go back in. And hold down our LCD panel. And we're just going to go in a kind of crosshatch pattern, get them started, and then we'll go back and tighten them. This one I don't think we quite got started. So we'll move it up here. Oops. Tight. Tight, and last one is tight. All right, so what we're going to use next, I've got, no way are these things any good. We'll see. I got these wipes. They are completely dried out. But I do have a microfiber cloth. And I'm going to come in here, and any dust that came in very carefully and lightly, try to get the dust out. There's a little bit of dust there. Can of air would probably work too. Now you got to be extremely careful here because, like I said, this panel's already got a little bit of a scratch on it, probably from when the glass broke. And there's a little bit of smudges on it, but you'll probably not even notice that when it's back in. But you don't want to press on this too hard. There's basically thin bits of glass in the actual LCD itself, so any bit of pressure is risky on it. So very, very light just to get the dust off. Some more patience for this. It is. These things are, the screws are so tiny. All right, so if I remember correctly, all we really have left to do at this point, and I probably should have been checking the directions, but oh, we got our smart magnets. We got to get those on. So, but we're going to go ahead and pull off this adhesive strip here on the underside, and this is another case where, personally, it's weird that I can do this, but the one thing I can't do and that I hate and despise is putting screen protectors on. I always end up with some sort of dust under them. So I'm going to pull this up out of the way. This should. So essentially, do I want that to come off? I guess so. That. And we're back to feel like that did something and did not need to come off. But let's check on our old one. Yes, our old one has that strip, that tape strip right there. So we're going to put that back. It looks like it was just poorly assembled. So what I need to do now is come in here. I'm fairly certain there is a, and I'm going to block the camera view, so I'm going to try to move the camera so I don't. I'm fairly certain there's a little piece of adhesive here. It's very frustrating. This is an adhesive strip that has to be that's the outer one. There's no pull tab for it, and that's very frustrating. And if there were instructions, they're not very good. Here we go. It's like just a fingernail will do it. Jeez, what a pain. Look at that. Look at how easy that is to screw up. There we go. All right, so a little adhesive piece, which I'm going to have to come in here and get this one. That is super annoying. Move my whole assembly. Make sure I'm not pushing you off screen here. Hey, why did I get dust in it? Now I know why. This one is very difficult. Jeez. Okay, we're going to use our utility knife. There, that's doing it. Look at that. That's such a pain. You really should have put a little pull tab on this one, or if there is one, I didn't see it. Even still, there, I am. The problem is, some way, shape, or form, I'm going to have to get under that ribbon cable without bending and breaking it. There we go. Ooh, what a pain. Oh boy. Now the ribbon cable's glued to it. Alright, there we go. Right, so our smart magnets are going to have to go back on, as they're called. Let's lay that down. So all of our adhesive is off. We have our, make sure we don't have any more dust in our screen. Let's put our smart magnets on. This one goes at the top. Should go right up there. All right. Hopefully that is going to line up. And then our lower one. this one looks like it's shaped to line up for this cavity right here. So we're going to put it right there and hope that it holds to our screen. And that should be largely it. We've got our smart magnets, as long as they don't fall off when we fold this back. We're going to leave this on. I hope we didn't forget anything. Press it on. Check on our sides. And now we should have done what we check this, make sure there's nothing in it. And there isn't, thankfully. And fortunately, it looks like we pulled this side piece out where it was dented enough, so our screen did fit. It does fit in there pretty good. So basically, go through and just work that glue in. Pull off the screen protector. And you can see the scratch under the glass. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but I can see it. It's very minuscule, and it'll definitely go away. Here, microfiber cloth. So enough pressure to seat the adhesive, but not so much pressure to damage anything. Now for the big test. Oh, that's a good sign. Now do we have touch? That's going to be the big question. Is our digitizer actually functioning? So our iPad is booting. So Tom saw the fingerprint on the LCD. There in the middle there was a ton of like marks on it. I don't know if there was a fingerprint. Hopefully there wasn't, but I'm not seeing it here, fortunately. There's something under the glass, probably dust. So, is that a break in the glass? It's hard to tell. I think it's bad quality of the glass, but this is taking a long time to boot up. Oh, there we go. Enter passcode. This is extremely dim, but let's see if I can get a little more light to boost the screen up. Can I get the screen? Well, the good news is the screen is working, and I don't have the passcode. And if the person watching this is on, don't type it in. You don't need to send it to me. We'll work it out. But it looks like it is back together. So, and the movement works, all that good stuff. I got my screen turned up so much you probably can't even see it. But hopefully with the lights. Trying to see on the OBS if you can see it. Yeah, you can kind of make it out there. The big question is going to be if I hold the power button. There's our slide to turn off. Hey, I can actually turn it off. I couldn't turn it off before. So, it is. You know, it's funny, I'm looking at it, and you can't see this on camera, but I can actually see the digitizer lines in the screen. So I think it's just an aftermarket quality of the glass, which is a bummer on that. I don't remember the brand name for this one. It's a different one than I bought before. The last one I bought was discontinued, at least for this model, and I couldn't find it. So it was a little harder to find the glass when I bought it. But it's good, and for what it is, an older iPad, now it has a repaired working screen. This thing's back in business. So that's pretty much it, and I've got a whole bunch of tools sitting here now and an open utility knife. But so the good news is everything is working. Our iPad's back together. It's going well. We did take, I was actually questioning myself, did I take the inner screen protector off? But here it is. So both screen protectors from the new glass were removed. So a couple tips and points. Again, on the one that you took off, make sure you put the tape over it, and that keeps it all in one piece when you remove it. And sometimes if they're shattered really bad, like this one was in the corner, we're actually going to fold it over to keep it in one piece. But you do sometimes have to come with tweezers and pick the glass out. And a lot of times, the longer it's been like this, the more you get dust that can get underneath the glass onto the LCD panel, and you'll end up with imperfections on it. So depending on how old it is, it's hard to make them exactly perfect, but for $18, $20 for the glass, and like I said, every time you buy one of these, you get tools. This came with the glass, and of course I've got my electronic toolkit here from other things, but only special tools with some sort of a heat source for the adhesive. We used a heat gun, a hair dryer would work. Anything that gets nice and warm that loosen that adhesive would work fine, and everything else came with it. I don't think there was anything else that we really needed. Oh, just the backing tape. So let's pop back over to YouTube, because our job here is pretty much done, and see what anyone's chatting about here. Oh, sure. You don't remember the passcode either? I'm sure you'll remember it. There's probably a way to connect it to your computer and reset it if you have an active Apple account. So as long as you know your Apple ID, you should be able to reset it. I probably won't, but this is good. This is back together. So now I hope I don't drop it before I get it back to you. So maybe we'll wrap it in this foam here. Look at that. Keep it nice and protected. But I'm going to kind of pack the tools up here. We'll see if there's anyone hanging out on the chat that wants to talk. Otherwise, you know, this is what we set out to do. You know, there's not too much to talk about. We might end the live stream. We'll probably connect up and do some stuff a little later on. I've got some old vintage computer gear I can pull out and show. I don't really have it set up with stuff to tinker with, but I enjoy that stuff. I've been messing with computers, gosh, tons of time now, and I've got a bunch of old stuff that I saved throughout the years, stuff that when I was a kid I played with, like Commodore 64 and stuff like that. So maybe what we'll do is take one of those machines and fire it up. The Commodore I have no software for it. I do have a TI-99 4A, an old Texas Instruments, which is a cool little cartridge-based home computer from the early 80s, late 70s. And that thing's cool. That thing we can hook up to an old TV. We'll set up a live stream and do that. But let me just clean up my tools here. You can watch me do that, which on the video when this is posted, you can pretty much close because we're pretty much done. But I figured I'd do that. If there's anyone on the live stream in the comments asking questions, I can certainly answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to put my tools back where they belong. I use this little thing here. This is a neat little tool. Put all the sharp edges down. That way I don't jab myself with them later on, which I will. Got all of my suction cups. Like I said, every time you do a screen, you get one of these little suction cups. So I've got 4 of those, plus I think another 5th or 6th one in the box there. So it's cool. It's like everything. You get tools when you do it. So there. Another thing I do, if I ever take this somewhere just to save room, I've got a pencil here and I've got some packing tape wrapped around it, so I can do probably a couple phones just without having to remember to grab my roll of packing tape, which is handy. So if I show up somewhere helping somebody out with my little toolkit, I got enough to get the job done. So what I'm looking for, where this goes, that should go in there. Oh, look, a little brush. I could have swept the dust out. So this is a very nice little kit. I'm pretty happy with it. Has just about everything you need to work on mobile devices. This opener, this I think is separate from this, so that just goes in here. I've got all of my guitar picks. These aren't actual guitar picks, but they look like them. Those in there. This is the new screwdriver I got in this kit. It also came with these little things. They're like section. This one is formed so badly. Like some of the tools you get, they're not really worth much. This one is formed so badly it has zero suction. This one actually does, and it works. Actually works fairly well. So So I might as well just chuck this one because it doesn't work at all, but I'm a pack rat. I don't throw anything out. I mean, that I will throw out. I mean, really, there's no reason I'm going to ever want that, but some things you never know, you might need them. Okay, I think we're pretty much packed up. Let's see. Trying really hard to remember the passcodes. It'd be really not funny if you did all this work to replace the screen and I can't remember the passcode. You'll get it. You'll remember it. And like I said, if you don't remember it, if you ever lose the passcode on your Apple device, Apple should have ways to reset it, so it's no big deal. All right, I think we're pretty much done for the day. I think I'm going to wrap up here. Looks like we're about an hour and a half in, so we can wrap the script. So you might have to surprise yourself and remember. Oh yeah, yeah. I agree with Tom. Sometimes it's the act of typing it in, like it's muscle memory. You might not remember the number, but with passwords, sometimes I couldn't tell you my password, but I could type it. So it's muscle memory. You know it. So it'll probably come back. You'd be surprised. You pick the device up, turn it on, and it's just gonna come back to you. But I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and probably cut the stream out. We'll catch up on Instagram. We'll keep up on comments and stuff that's posted. The video will end up showing up on our feed, and I'll leave all the stuff out here, and hopefully I can find some more time this week, connect up, and I like the idea. Maybe we'll pull that old Texas Instruments out, grab a couple things, and show you. Maybe pull the old motherboard collection out from the old days and show you some cool stuff. But it's a little bit different than being in the shop. And then hopefully this weekend we'll pull the cameras out in the shop and getting really close to wrapping that truck up, getting it out of there, and then pulling the Spitfire out and actually making some headway on it. So yes, finally. So all right, everyone. Yep, stay safe. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks all.